Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Tropics Talk. Meteorologist Jim Dickey here in the ABC 7 Weather Center in Fort Myers, Florida. Pretty busy out there, so let's get right to it. Two areas the Hurricane Center is tracking. That same wave we were talking about through all of last week. Now about halfway between Africa and the Eastern Caribbean. And then also much closer to home, much closer to the United States. A low pressure area swirling off the coast of Georgia this morning that has a high chance to become at least a tropical depression before it moves onshore tonight. So let's begin with that one. And looking pretty impressive on the satellite presentation this morning, although a little bit deceiving too. See the thunderstorm activity flaring up with it, but as we'll look at in detail here, most of the thunderstorms, all of it really, displaced from where the center is. You can make out that center swirling off to the east of those brighter colors you're seeing on the satellite presentation this morning. Now, it's moving to the west-northwest, it would appear, general direction of Savannah, Georgia. And note where this is right now in relation to the water temperatures. This is right over the Gulf Stream. That current of very warm waters that comes out of the Florida Straits goes right up the east coast and then out to the east once it gets to about Cape Hatteras, but it's where water temperatures are in the middle to lower 80s. Sort of acts as jet fuel. Many systems have come together right over the Gulf Stream, and this one could be just the latest in that series. What's holding it back, though, this morning is this. Some fairly strong wind shear, some fairly strong winds in the middle and upper levels of the atmosphere. We're talking 40 knots plus when you get up to about 500 millibars and go higher than that. And those easterly winds are taking the thunderstorm activity associated with this tropical low and pushing it all off to the east. So as we look at this high-resolution satellite presentation, I swirl it here back through the past 2 hours. It's not tough to pick out where the low-level center is on this, right about there. Let me go back through the past 2 hours again, and you look at the area circled. You can see that clear counterclockwise swirling going on. The center itself would appear to be right about here in this right now. But this is all the deep convection, the thunderstorm activity. It's being displaced by those strong upper-level winds off to the west and the west-southwest from that center. So the Hurricane Center said in their latest update that came out just before 8 a.m., if some of this is able to form closer to the center, if that backs its way a bit further to the west, or we get new storms to form in this general vicinity, they're going to pull the trigger and start issuing advisories on this, be that calling for it to be a tropical depression or a tropical storm. Again, as I showed you, the water's definitely warm enough for this to do so. You can see that in the convection that's firing, the thunderstorms that are firing. The question is it able to overcome those strong easterly winds, get some of that activity closer to the center, and then become a tropical depression? As far as I know, as I'm recording this right now, there's no planned flight into this, but if they fly into it later on today, that's when they'll likely be able to see if the winds are at that threshold. And regardless, it's a high chance for development now. The Hurricane Center says a 70% chance this is at least a depression as it moves onshore tonight. If it becomes a tropical storm, it would take the name Danny. It would be the fourth named storm of the season, outpaced only by 2020 and reaching storm number 4. We reached that on June 23rd last year, so at least a couple days behind 2020. The good news is with this, I don't think we're talking huge impacts. Some gusty winds tonight, wind gusts at least to tropical storm force in spots like Savannah and Charleston, 40, 45 miles per hour. Someone's going to get soaked, but it's not going to be a huge widespread rain event like, say, we were talking about with Claudette going back a week ago. We're talking a few spots, 3, 4, 5 inches of rain, which isn't much more than you'd see in a day where the summertime thunderstorms are particularly heavy. Yeah, there's going to be some flooding in a few spots, but again, the rain's not all that widespread. On our model here, it's showing the heaviest totals just south of Savannah. You could see that nose northward. Yes, somebody's soaked, but overall a low impact, low intensity tropical system coming on shore there tonight. And then tomorrow morning, it'll be inland. Anything that does come together will likely have already fallen apart. So short-lived little system there, but yeah, we'll be watching it. We could get storm number 4 to form out of that later on today. We jump out to the eastern Atlantic. Looking pretty disorganized out here. Broad low pressure. There was a little flare-up. I'll zoom in. A little flare-up of thunderstorm activity, but I'm not seeing that really holding together, at least not at this point in time. And then broad thunderstorm activity to the south and east of that. But this is our tropical wave that has a medium chance to come together. In fact, more or less, there's two waves embedded within this. Some models want to develop the leading wave. Some want to develop sort of some of this activity going back here into something. Bottom line, the Hurricane Center says there's a medium chance that something, a tropical depression, a tropical storm, is able to emerge out of this in the next 5 days. 40% as their latest update. Timing-wise, it's moving pretty quickly. It's going to reach the Caribbean by the time we get to Wednesday. So regardless of development, some wind-driven rainfall for the eastern islands there. And again, the question is, what is this able to do? So you look at the spaghetti plots, a number of them drag this to the north right over Puerto Rico and Hispaniola and then sort of recurve. That would be the models that develop this. Take a more northerly track and move this towards the Bahamas and out into the open Atlantic. The ones that keep it weaker, like say you see that lime green one, that's the GFS forecast model. Actually never brings us together. The operational run this morning keeps it an open wave moving through the central Caribbean into next week. Yeah, models are definitely split on what to do with this. The European in particular has been pretty all over the place from run to run. Again, the 12Z yesterday was pretty aggressive developing this. And now we're back at the 0Z run that came out earlier on this morning. Basically, each and every member, those are the individual lines. You see all those blues. Those are showing, again, this staying disorganized, probably not even coming together per that model. A few going tropical storm intensity. And then you look at the GFS this morning. Similarly, very few of these develop it. A few do, a few more anyway, bring it to tropical storm strength and then break it apart as it moves towards the Caribbean. Then you switch over and look at some of the more high resolution or the hurricane focus models, and now you're seeing a split. About a half of the members showing this becoming a tropical storm, about half keeping it below tropical storm intensity. And note that purple line, that's the HWRF, which is a high resolution model focused entirely on forecasting hurricanes, and it shows this becoming a hurricane. Now, I find the HWRF tends to be a little overdramatic at times, so likely a little more intense than this would be. But, you know, it's speaking to the conditions that are out there, that perhaps something could come together. So it's definitely a system to watch, that we will be watching, that could be a tropical storm or tropical depression at the very least as it nears the Caribbean later on here this week. So first things first, of more immediate concern is our tropical low that moves onshore tonight in Georgia, South Carolina. That could be Tropical Storm Danny before it does, bringing wind and rainfall to southern South Carolina and eastern Georgia through the night. Falls apart pretty quickly as it moves onshore. Then we switch our attention back to the wave in the East Atlantic. Still a long time to watch that one before it gets anywhere close to the United States. Still a lot of uncertainty into exactly what we're dealing with that one. And I think the good news is here in Florida, no threats to worry about, at least through this week, at least through the holiday weekend. And again, we'll be keeping an eye on that wave as we go into next week for sure, as perhaps something tries to approach the United States. But until then, we'll keep updating you here on air, online. That begins tonight. Chief Meteorologist John Patrick, he'll have an update coming up 6, 7, and 11 on ABC 7 News. I'll have a full update tomorrow. We'll take a look at what went on with that low in Georgia and South Carolina. So be sure you tune in then.